Love is this quiet balance where two independent people stay whole, yet still connect, support, and acknowledge each other, as Rainer Maria Rilke once expressed. So what actually happens when a younger woman begins to show real, genuine interest, and instead of things growing naturally, you end up pushing her away without even realizing it? It's not about your age. It's not about lacking value. More often than not, it comes down to one small, unintentional mistake that sends the wrong signal much faster than you think. If you're a man in your 40s, 50s, or even 60s, and a younger woman comes into your life with curiosity, warmth, and authentic enthusiasm, that kind of attention can feel intense. It can wake something up inside you that's been quiet for years. You start to feel sharper, more energized, more alive, and that feeling is powerful. But this is exactly where many men begin to lose their balance, not at the start, but right after it. The attention feels flattering. The excitement pulls them in, and without noticing, they begin behaving in ways that actually weaken their presence. They reach too far. They react too quickly. They let go of the calm confidence that made them attractive in the first place. And just like that, the attraction starts fading before it even has the chance to grow deeper. This isn't about blaming anyone, it's about awareness. More often than not, it comes down to one small, unintentional mistake that sends the wrong signal much faster than you think. If you're a man in your 40s, 50s, or even 60s, and a younger woman comes into your life with curiosity, warmth, and authentic enthusiasm, that kind of attention can feel intense. It can wake something up inside you that's been quiet for years. It's about staying grounded, respecting yourself, and managing your energy the right way. Because a man who has lived, learned, and endured already holds real value. He doesn't need to chase it, he needs to protect it. In this breakdown, we're going to go through the 7 most common mistakes older men make when a younger woman shows genuine interest. More importantly, you'll understand how to avoid these traps, stay steady, and remain deeply attractive without losing who you are. The number 1 mistake: never lose your mission because of her. The most important mistake to avoid is simple but critical. Never lose your mission because of her. The moment you do, everything begins to shift. In subtle ways you might not notice immediately, but you will definitely feel over time. Your purpose, your goals, your direction in life, these are not optional parts of who you are. They are your foundation. They give you presence. They give you clarity. They keep you grounded in a world full of distractions. Don't trade that for attention. Don't pause your path just because someone new enters your life. Be the man who understands that attraction grows when a man has purpose, not when he abandons it. This is one of the most overlooked psychological truths, yet one of the most powerful. A lot of men believe that building connection means giving more time, more energy, more availability. That's where things start to go wrong. Because when you begin adjusting your life around her, skipping your routines, delaying your goals, you're sending a message, not just to her, but to yourself, that your mission is flexible, negotiable, secondary. And that's dangerous. That's how you lose your edge. That's how the slow drift begins. What pulls you away from the man you were becoming often happens quietly. And here's a truth deeply rooted in human psychology. A woman is naturally drawn to a man who is moving forward in life, not a man who stops the moment she enters the picture. She doesn't want to become your mission. She wants to step into a life that already has direction. That's how real, lasting connection is built. You invite someone into your journey. You don't abandon your journey for them. Be clear on that. Stand firm in it, because the moment you start revolving around her world instead of building your own, everything shifts. The dynamic changes. Respect starts to slip. Attraction becomes unstable. You might think you're showing care. You might believe you're being attentive. But in reality, you're creating imbalance. You're weakening the very qualities that made you attractive in the first place. That's why discipline matters. That's why consistency matters. Stick to your routines. Hold your standards. Honor your commitments to yourself. If you train, you show up. If you're building something, you stay consistent. If you have a vision, you move toward it every single day. No excuses. No exceptions. Not even for her. Especially not for her. Because when she sees that you respect your own path, she begins to respect it too. This is another subtle psychological truth most men overlook. They assume attraction is built through constant attention, constant texting, constant reassurance. But real attraction grows in space. In a bit of mystery. In watching a man fully engaged in his own life. That's where curiosity builds. That's where admiration forms. And this doesn't mean becoming distant or cold. Not at all. Be present when you're with her. Be real. Be engaged. But don't lose yourself in the process. Don't get so caught up in trying to create love that you forget who you are outside of it. Because love isn't built on dependency. It's built on two complete individuals choosing each other, not relying on each other to feel whole. That's the line you can't afford to cross. And in today's world, this matters more than ever. There are distractions everywhere, social platforms, constant messages, endless loops of validation, all pulling your attention away from what truly matters. If you're not careful, you don't just lose time, you lose direction, you lose momentum. And once momentum is gone, everything starts to feel heavier. That's why you must guard your energy, protect your time, stay committed to your mission. Treat it like your most valuable asset, because it is. A man with a clear purpose is naturally attractive. He doesn't need to prove it. He doesn't need to say it out loud. It shows in how he moves. It shows in how he speaks. And it shows in what he refuses to compromise on. He keeps moving forward no matter what. He doesn't pause his life for anyone. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. That's self-respect. And when you stay locked in on your own path, something powerful starts to happen. You build stability. You develop strength, you become centered. And that kind of energy is undeniable. It naturally pulls people in, especially women who recognize real value on a deeper level. Because again, from a psychological perspective, a woman respects a man who knows where he's going. She feels secure around that. She feels grounded by it. But the moment a man drops his path just to chase her, that respect starts fading fast. Because if you can walk away from your purpose that easily, what does that say about your consistency? What does that say about who you really are? She may never ask those questions out loud, but she will feel them. Always remember this: attraction is not built by sacrificing yourself. It's built by staying aligned with who you are. That's one of the most important psychological principles you can understand. Don't overgive. Don't overadjust. Don't overcompromise. Be flexible where it makes sense, but never at the cost of your core. That core is your anchor. That's your power. And when you hold that line, everything starts to shift. Your confidence becomes real. Your presence becomes calm. Your decisions become sharper. You stop chasing and you start choosing. That's how a real connection is built the right way. Not by losing yourself in someone else, but by standing fully in who you are and allowing the right person to meet you there. So stay on your path. Stay committed. Stay disciplined. Because in the end, the man who keeps moving forward, or no matter who enters or leaves his life, is the man who wins. Not just in relationships, but in life. The second mistake: becoming her backup option. The second mistake is subtle, but it hits hard. Allowing yourself to become her backup option. And once you fall into that role, it quietly reshapes everything. It drains your confidence, your time, and your sense of self. She reaches out when it's convenient. She disappears when something more exciting shows up. And then she comes back again when she needs attention, comfort, or reassurance. If you're not careful, you start accepting this pattern as normal. You begin justifying it, telling yourself she's busy, she's overwhelmed, she's trying to figure things out. But pay attention here. A man grounded in real discipline doesn't avoid reality. He faces it directly. And the reality is simple. You are not her priority. You are her convenience. And convenience is never where real attraction or respect is built. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have control over your mind, not external events. Once you truly understand that, you step into real strength. That's where your power comes from. Not from chasing her attention, not from waiting for her to finally choose you, but from choosing yourself with discipline and quiet confidence. Because the moment you accept being just an option, you slowly teach her to treat you that way. And even worse, you train yourself to believe that's all you deserve. Don't do that. Don't quietly negotiate your worth. Don't lower your standards just to keep something going, because that's not connection. That's dependency disguised as hope. And hope without action becomes a trap. In today's fast-moving world, where attention is cheap and distractions are everywhere, it's easy to fall into this cycle. Checking your phone, waiting for her message, reshaping your schedule around her unpredictability. This is exactly where a disciplined mindset becomes your advantage. This is where you step back and take control again. You watch what she does, not what she says. You value consistency, not empty promises. And then you act based on that. Because a man with a strong mind doesn't chase uncertainty. He invests in what's real. As Epictetus taught, don't just talk about your philosophy, live it. And this is your moment to do exactly that. Not by reacting emotionally, not by demanding her attention, but by quietly changing your behavior. You become less available, less reactive, more focused on your own purpose, your own growth, your own life. And when you stop being constantly available, something shifts. The dynamic changes, the balance resets. Now she has to make a choice, step up or step away. And here's the truth you need to understand. Either outcome works in your favor, because you're no longer stuck giving more than you receive. A man grounded in discipline understands that his time is his most valuable asset. He doesn't invest it where it isn't respected. He doesn't pour energy into situations that give nothing back. He doesn't stand in the background hoping to be chosen. He stands in his own space and allows others to meet him there with the same level of intention. This is the mindset you need to adopt. Repeat it until it becomes natural. Don't accept inconsistency. Don't reward unpredictable behavior. Don't stay in places where you're only remembered when it's convenient, because that's not where respect exists. That's not where attraction grows. And that's not where meaningful connection begins. In modern relationships, especially when there's an age gap, it's easy to feel like you need to prove yourself more, hold on tighter, or just be more patient. But patience without boundaries isn't strength. It's hesitation. And hesitation slowly weakens your presence. It chips away at your position. It sends a quiet message that you're willing to accept less than you truly deserve. Waiting around endlessly is never attractive. Instead, be decisive. Stay calm, stay grounded. Understand this. Your value doesn't rise because you're always available. It rises when you're selective, when you move with intention, when your presence is something that's earned, not automatically expected. As Seneca said, true courage brings freedom. And there's a quiet kind of courage in walking away from situations that don't respect your worth. There's strength in saying nothing and simply pulling back your attention. Because your energy, your presence, that's your currency. And where you invest it shapes the quality of your life. When you develop a strong, disciplined mindset, you stop reacting emotionally to inconsistency. You stop overthinking every message, every delay, every excuse. And instead, you turn your focus back to what matters. Your direction, your purpose, your standards. That's where real confidence is built. Not from validation, not from her attention, but from your ability to stay steady, no matter how she behaves. Don't misunderstand this. This isn't about playing games. It's not manipulation. It's alignment. Aligning your actions with your values. Aligning your time with your priorities. Aligning your standards with your self-respect. When those things are in place, you naturally stop accepting anything less. You become a man who leads his own life, not someone waiting on the sidelines of someone else's. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to hold on to her, the moment you stop placing yourself as a backup, the moment you fully step into your own life, your own rhythm, your own purpose, you become more attractive, not because you're trying to be, but because you're no longer chasing. You're no longer looking for approval. You're simply being, and that presence carries weight. That presence commands respect. Remember this. Repeat it until it becomes part of how you think. You are not an option. You are not a placeholder. You are not convenience. You are a man with direction, standards, and self-respect. And a man like that doesn't wait to be chosen. He chooses. He decides. He moves forward. This is the core of Stoic discipline. This is the mindset of a strong, steady man, calm, focused, and unshaken. When you live this way, you stop fearing the loss of someone who treats you like an option, because you understand something deeper. You never truly had them to begin with. And more importantly, you never lost yourself in the process. That's the real win. That's how you take control of your life. And if this message connects with you, then it's time to raise your standards. Stop accepting half-hearted attention and start expecting real respect. A man who knows his worth doesn't wait in the background. He doesn't settle for convenience. And he never allows himself to be treated like an option. He makes decisions. And when he's not valued, he walks away. That's power. That's control. That's self-respect. Now prove it to yourself. Say it and mean it. I'm never anyone's backup. I choose my own value. The third mistake, imagining a future too soon. At the beginning, it feels exciting. You meet her. The chemistry is there. Conversation flows easily. And before you even realize it, your mind starts jumping ahead of reality. You begin picturing what a relationship could become. Trips together, shared routines, maybe even a life that feels more complete. But here's the truth. This is where many men quietly lose their edge without noticing. This is where emotional clarity starts to fade. And this is where a man who could have naturally attracted her begins to create pressure, the kind that slowly pushes her away. Understand this clearly. Attraction grows in reality, not in imagination. When you start building a future in your head too early, you're no longer connecting with who she actually is. You're connecting with who you want her to be. That shift is dangerous. That's when illusion replaces observation. And once that happens, your behavior changes. You become more invested than the situation truly deserves. You start reacting instead of leading. You treat potential like it's already proven. Don't do that. A grounded, high-value man doesn't rush ahead of reality. He stays present. He lets things unfold at their natural pace. That's what builds real attraction. That's how connection forms without forcing anything. Here's what really happens when you get ahead of yourself. You become emotionally attached to an idea before you've even seen who she really is. You attach to a version of her that only exists in your mind. And because that version feels good, because it gives you hope, because it makes you feel alive again, you start protecting that illusion. You ignore what doesn't match the story. You overlook inconsistencies. You justify behavior that doesn't meet your standards. You tolerate things you normally wouldn't question. That's not strength. That's emotional investment without real evidence. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you met someone, felt that spark, and immediately thought this could turn into something serious? How often did you start adjusting your behavior because you didn't want to mess it up? That's the exact moment you lose your center. That's when your grounded energy starts slipping. A man who is truly centered doesn't rush to label things. He doesn't feel the need to define the future after a few good conversations. He understands that real connection takes time. It's built through consistency, through shared experiences, through seeing how someone shows up in real life, not through imagination. He watches, he listens, he pays attention to patterns. Because patterns reveal truth. Words can be exciting, promises can sound convincing. Patterns don't lie. You have to train yourself to slow down internally, even when everything on the outside feels like it's moving fast. That's discipline. That's emotional control. That's what separates a grounded, high-value man from someone who simply reacts to feelings. Don't confuse chemistry with compatibility. Chemistry is instant. It's emotional. It's exciting. But compatibility reveals itself over time. It shows in how she handles pressure, how she communicates when things aren't perfect, how consistent she is across different situations. If you rush ahead, you never give yourself the chance to see those deeper layers. You stay stuck in surface-level excitement. And eventually, that excitement fades, and reality shows up whether you're ready or not. When reality doesn't match the picture you created in your mind, the disappointment hits hard. Not because she changed, but because your expectations were never grounded in truth. You built a version of her she never agreed to be. Now, you're stuck trying to match your imagination with what's actually real. Don't put yourself in that position. Stay present. That's your power. Stay grounded in what's actually happening, not what might happen. Pay attention to her actions, not just her words. Anyone can say the right things in the beginning. Anyone can make a strong first impression. But consistency over time, that's rare. That's valuable. That's what you need to watch for. A high-value man doesn't chase potential. He evaluates reality. He gives things space to grow. He allows attraction to develop naturally instead of trying to force it into a specific outcome. That patience is attractive. That calm presence is what draws people in without pressure. Think about it like this. When you rush into imagining a future, you start placing expectations on her without realizing it. You begin wanting her to act in ways that match your vision. You become more sensitive to how she responds. You start reading into small details. You overanalyze everything. And without noticing, you create emotional tension. She feels it. She may not be able to explain it, but she senses things are moving too fast. And when something feels forced, people naturally pull back. Be the man who moves with quiet certainty, not emotional urgency. That's grounded masculine energy. It's calm. It's steady. It's not rushed. It doesn't need instant answers. It doesn't need constant reassurance. It trusts the process. Understand this deeply. Attraction isn't built on intensity alone. It's built on consistency, presence, and emotional stability. When you stay grounded, you give both yourself and her the space to discover what's real. You let things unfold naturally, and that's where genuine connection exists. Don't ignore red flags just because you like how she makes you feel. Feelings can be powerful, but they can also mislead you. If something feels off, pay attention. If her actions don't match her words, notice it. If her behavior is inconsistent, don't explain it away. A grounded man doesn't lower his standards just because the attraction feels strong. That's how you protect yourself. Not by shutting down, but by staying aware, staying present, and refusing to invest emotionally in something that hasn't proven itself real. Real connection takes time. There's no shortcut. And when you try to rush it, you skip the very process that reveals the truth. Without truth, there's no real foundation. Be patient, be observant, stay grounded. Remind yourself, I don't need to figure out where this is going right now. That mindset keeps you calm. It keeps you centered. It lets you enjoy the moment without attaching unnecessary meaning to it. And ironically, that's what makes you more attractive because you're not trying to control the outcome. You're simply experiencing what's in front of you. That's the energy that draws women in, not neediness, not overthinking, not emotional projection, but calm presence, clear judgment, quiet confidence. 11. A grounded man understands that not every connection is meant to turn into something long-term, and that's okay. He doesn't force it. He doesn't cling to it. He allows things to either grow naturally or fade without resistance. That mindset gives him freedom. It keeps his emotional state steady. Masculine strength isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, your pace. When you master that, you naturally attract women who respect your presence. So don't rush ahead. Don't create stories in your mind that reality hasn't earned yet. Don't attach to potential before it shows up as consistent behavior. Stay grounded in what's real. Watch what she does. Notice how she shows up over time. That's how you stay clear. That's how you protect your energy. That's how you build connections based on truth, not illusion. And most importantly, that's how you remain a high-value man, calm, centered, and in control of your direction, no matter how exciting things feel. The fourth mistake, trying too hard to impress her. The fourth mistake, and one that quietly ruins more opportunities than most men realize, is trying too hard to impress her. Because the moment you switch into performance mode, everything changes. You stop being someone she can naturally feel and start becoming someone she has to evaluate. You plan overly elaborate dates, thinking complexity creates attraction. You rehearse conversations in your head, believing perfection builds connection. You highlight your achievements, your status, your experiences, assuming that more proof will create deeper feelings. But here's the truth most men miss. Attraction doesn't grow from pressure. It grows from presence. And when you try too hard, you create a subtle tension she can feel, even if she can't explain it. A tension that says, I need to win you over, instead of, I'm already grounded in who I am. That small difference changes everything. Don't confuse effort with value. Don't assume more is better. And don't mistake impressing her for actually connecting with her. Because emotionally, ease always outweighs admiration. This is where many men misunderstand attraction. They think it comes from doing more, when in reality, it comes from being more calm, more centered, more certain. Be the man who chooses without hesitation, who speaks without over-explaining, who listens without trying to fix everything. That's what signals quiet leadership. And leadership isn't about control. It's about direction. It's about creating a space where things can unfold naturally, without force. When you embody that, she feels it immediately. She relaxes. She leans in. Not because you overwhelmed her with effort, but because you removed the pressure she never wanted to feel in the first place. Understand this clearly. When you try to impress, you put her in a position where she has to judge you, and attraction doesn't grow under judgment. It grows under emotional safety. And emotional safety comes from consistency, calm behavior, and a man who isn't trying to prove anything because he already understands his own worth. This is one of the most overlooked psychological truths. The less you try to prove, the more she starts to discover, and discovery is what creates curiosity. And curiosity is what naturally leads to connection, without force, without performance, without strategy. Think about it. When everything feels scripted, when every moment feels calculated, it loses its natural spark. It starts to feel heavy, unnatural, and without even realizing it, she begins to pull back. Not because of something obvious you did wrong, but because something simply feels off. It feels like effort instead of flow, and flow is where real connection lives. Pay attention to the subtle signs in your own behavior. Are you pausing too long before speaking just to say the right thing? Are you over-explaining yourself just to gain approval? Are you constantly checking her reactions to validate what you do? These are small signals that you've stepped out of your natural state and into performance mode. And performance always creates distance. Instead, return to simplicity. Choose places you genuinely enjoy. Speak about things that actually matter to you. Allow silence without rushing to fill it. Because when you're comfortable with silence, it becomes powerful. It shows confidence. It shows security. It shows that you don't need constant validation to feel okay. And that kind of energy is far more attractive than any rehearsed line or overly planned moment. Remember this. Connection isn't built by impressing someone into feeling something. It's built by creating space where feelings can develop naturally. That requires patience, presence, and trust in yourself. Don't chase reactions. Don't try to manufacture attraction. Don't believe you have to earn interest through performance. That mindset creates imbalance from the start. Instead, be the man who shows up fully, who makes calm decisions, who communicates clearly without overcomplicating things. Because clarity removes confusion and calmness removes pressure. Together, they create an environment where attraction can actually breathe. And that's why the most effective psychology tricks aren't tricks at all. They're just behaviors rooted in emotional stability and self-awareness. People are drawn to how you make them feel, not how hard you try to impress them. And when she feels at ease around you, when she feels like she can simply be herself without being evaluated or pressured, that's when she opens up naturally. That's when real connection begins. So be mindful of your intention. Are you trying to connect or trying to prove something? Because those two paths lead in completely different directions. One leads to authenticity, the other leads to exhaustion. And over time, she will always be drawn to the man who feels real, not the one who feels rehearsed. Let go of the need to impress. Because true value isn't something you constantly display. It's something she experiences through your presence, your consistency, and your ability to stay steady no matter what's happening around you. And that steadiness is what builds trust. And trust is the foundation of any meaningful connection. So stay grounded, stay clear, and stay intentional, but never become performative. Because the more natural and centered you are, the more she feels drawn in, without needing a reason, without needing pressure, without needing effort. That's the quiet difference that separates a man who struggles from a man who understands deeper human psychology. He doesn't chase attraction. He allows it to form naturally, steadily, and without force. So if this message hits you, don't just consume it. Apply it. Stop performing. Start leading with calm certainty. Chapter 6, the fifth mistake, chasing her validation. This mistake rarely shows up loudly. It slips in quietly, almost invisibly, until it has already changed your behavior. One day you're grounded, focused, and moving with purpose. The next, you're checking your phone too often, giving compliments that feel slightly forced, adjusting your schedule just to keep her attention. And in that subtle shift, something important happens. You stop leading and start seeking. You stop choosing and start waiting. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not external events. Understand that clearly, and you become stronger than circumstance. But the moment your emotional stability depends on her response, you give that power away. And here's the truth. The need for validation is one of the fastest ways to lose attraction. Because when you need approval, you signal uncertainty. And uncertainty slowly erodes respect. Without respect, attraction cannot survive for long. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about internal authority. It's about living from a grounded sense of self instead of emotional dependence. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes practical. Not theory, but behavior. Not ideas, but discipline. An iron mind isn't something you talk about. It's something you practice daily. A man who knows his worth doesn't chase approval because he has already built it within himself. As Epictetus taught, no one is truly free unless they have mastered themselves. And that mastery begins in your reactions, your patience, and your emotional control. So when she takes time to reply, you don't spiral. You don't overanalyze. You don't chase with extra messages to fill silence. You stay focused. You stay active. You stay committed to your mission. Because your life isn't paused for anyone. It keeps moving, with or without her. And paradoxically, that's exactly what makes you more attractive. People are drawn to those who are already complete within themselves. In today's world, this mistake is even more common because of technology. Instant messages, social media, constant availability. But constant availability isn't attractive. Constant presence without purpose isn't powerful. What matters is direction. What matters is intention. What matters is emotional control. So learn to pause. Learn to breathe. Learn to step back from impulse. Every time you choose discipline over reaction, you strengthen your inner control. And this is not about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering it, directing it, making it work for you instead of against you. From her perspective, even if she doesn't consciously explain it, she feels the shift when you start seeking approval. She notices when your energy becomes dependent instead of grounded. And that subtle change affects everything more than words ever could. She responds to it because attraction isn't built on words alone. It's built on emotional signals, consistency, and the quiet certainty of a man who stands on his own foundation. As Seneca wrote, true bravery is freedom. And in this context, bravery isn't about big dramatic actions. It's about staying steady when uncertainty shows up. It's the discipline of not chasing when your emotions push you to. It's the strength of holding your center when you feel pulled off balance. Understand this deeply. Approval is not something you chase. It's something that naturally follows when you live with clarity and self-respect, when your actions align with your values, and your time is invested in growth, purpose, and direction that actually matters. So don't overcompliment. Don't over-adjust. Don't overextend just to keep her interested, because the more you try to secure attention, the more you signal uncertainty about your own position. And uncertainty creates distance. But when you stay centered, when you're fully engaged in your own life, when your world is already moving forward, you create something different. You create space for her to step toward you, to invest, to wonder, to choose. That's the paradox most men miss. The less you chase validation, the more naturally it appears in your life. Apply this with discipline. When you send a message, let it go. Don't hover. Don't measure your worth by how fast she replies. Return to your goals, your work, your physical discipline, your personal growth. Build a life that already demands your attention more than any conversation ever could, because that is the real foundation of attraction. A life that already has meaning without external approval. Repeat this until it becomes automatic. I don't chase validation. I create value. I don't wait for approval. I act with purpose. I don't lose control. I strengthen my iron mind. This isn't just repetition, it's conditioning. It's how old Stoic principles become lived reality. And remember, this isn't about becoming distant or cold. It's about being grounded, present without dependence, engaged without losing yourself. You can care, you can listen, you can connect, but you never abandon your center. Because the moment you do, everything shifts. So stay firm, stay focused. Move forward with intention, and let your actions speak louder than any need for approval, because the man who leads his own life is always the man others are drawn to, not because he tries to be, but because he already is. It begins very quietly. She opens up. She shares her stress, her past, the things that weigh on her late at night. And because you're a man with depth, because you genuinely care, you listen. You lean in. You try to understand. You want to help. You become the person she turns to when life feels heavy. At first, it feels like connection. It feels real. It feels meaningful. You think this is how bonds are built. But here's the truth most men never learn. Not every connection builds attraction. Some connections slowly replace it. That's where the shift begins. There's a fine line between being emotionally present and becoming her emotional caretaker. And most men don't notice when they cross it. One moment, you're a man she's curious about, someone she feels drawn to. Your presence carries a sense of calm strength and mystery. And then, without realizing it, you become the place she unloads everything. You become predictable, always available, always steady in a way that feels comforting, but not exciting. And attraction doesn't survive on comfort alone. It needs a sense of individuality, emotional space, and independence. Now understand this clearly. Listening is not the problem. A strong, grounded man knows how to listen. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't dismiss. He doesn't rush. He gives space. He makes her feel heard. That alone is powerful. That alone is rare. But the mistake happens when listening turns into absorbing. When you start carrying her emotional weight as if it's yours to fix. That's where the dynamic changes. Because you are not there to repair her past. You are not there to solve her entire emotional world. You are not meant to become the container for everything she hasn't processed yet. A high-value man understands this. Every person is responsible for their own emotional life. He supports, but he does not sacrifice himself. He listens, but he does not lose himself. He cares, but he does not collapse into someone else's problems. Now think about the shift in energy. The moment she shares something heavy and you immediately jump into fixing mode, trying to solve, rescue, or carry it for her, something subtle changes. You stop being the man she's attracted to and start becoming the man she relies on emotionally. And those are not the same roles. One creates desire. The other creates dependency. And dependency slowly weakens attraction. Not because she doesn't appreciate you, but because she begins to see you differently. You become safe in a way that is familiar, but no longer exciting. That's why emotional control matters. When emotional intensity shows up, you don't absorb it. You don't let it pull you off center. You don't lose your grounded state. You stay calm. You stay steady. You stay in your own frame. You remain composed. And that is masculine energy. That's what creates both safety and attraction at the same time. Not your ability to fix everything, not your willingness to carry everything, but your ability to stay steady when things feel unstable. And here's where many men go wrong. They start chasing the feeling of being needed because it feels good. It feels good when she calls you. It feels good when she trusts you with her emotions. It feels good to be the one she turns to. But you have to ask yourself honestly, is she leaning on you because she's building something with you, or because you've become her emotional outlet? There's a difference, a big one. One leads to real connection and attraction. The other leads to comfort without desire. A high-value man understands emotional boundaries without becoming cold. He shows empathy without losing his strength. He cares without overextending himself, because attraction grows in space where two people stand on their own feet, not where one person carries the emotional weight of the other. When you become someone's emotional crutch, you remove the tension that attraction naturally needs. There's no mystery, no emotional space, no uncertainty. She already knows you'll always be there, always available, always ready to absorb whatever she brings. And while that may look like loyalty, it often turns into predictability. And when predictability replaces emotional independence, attraction slowly weakens. So instead of jumping in to fix everything, slow down, listen, be present, but don't overstep. Don't rush to rescue. Don't take control of what isn't yours to carry. Sometimes the strongest response is simple, I hear you. And then you leave it there. You allow her to process. You allow her to own her emotions. You allow her to find her strength. That doesn't create distance. It creates respect. It shows confidence. It shows calm control. It shows that you're not trying to rescue or manage her emotional world. You're simply standing beside her, not underneath her problems. That is where masculine energy becomes powerful. It's not loud. It's not forceful. It's calm, grounded, self-contained. And that kind of presence naturally attracts people because it doesn't rely on overgiving to prove value. It simply exists, steady and unshaken. Don't lose your peace trying to carry someone else's emotional storms. That is not your role. Your role is to stay centered, stay balanced. Stay connected to yourself, because the moment you lose that, you also lose the very foundation that created attraction in the first place. Your calm, your strength, your independence. So be supportive but not absorbed. Be kind but not depleted. Be present but not consumed. That is how a grounded man moves. That is how he maintains attraction without losing himself. And here's the deeper truth. People don't just feel comfort from emotional support. They feel attraction from emotional strength. From a man who doesn't collapse into chaos, who doesn't get pulled off center, who stays steady no matter what happens. That is what makes him stand out. Where she feels both safe and drawn to you at the same time, not just one or the other. So stay warm, stay supportive, but protect your center. Protect your time. Protect your emotional energy. Because once you give that away too freely, you don't easily get it back. And more importantly, she feels that shift, even if she never says it, even if she can't explain it herself. Be the man who listens without absorbing everything. Be the man who cares without carrying everything. Be the man who supports without losing himself. That is the man who creates attraction, not just comfort. That is the man who holds connection and desire in balance. And remember this simple line because it will guide you every time. Stay grounded, not entangled. That is the mindset of a high-value man. That is the energy that keeps attraction alive. If this hits home, don't ignore it, because many men don't lose attraction due to lack of value, but because they give too much of themselves in the wrong way. Don't be that man. Chapter 8, The Seventh Mistake, Trying to Act Like You're Her Age. This mistake looks harmless at first, but it quietly destroys attraction faster than most men realize. Trying to act like you're her age. It feels logical in the moment. You meet a younger woman, you feel that spark, that energy, that sense of being alive again, and you think the way to keep the connection is to step fully into her world. So you change your style. You adjust your tone. You start using slang that doesn't naturally belong to you. You try to match her pace, her rhythm, her excitement. But here's the truth most men learn too late. Attraction doesn't grow from imitation. It grows from contrast. And this is where understanding human psychology becomes important. A younger woman isn't drawn to you because you can blend into her world. She's drawn to you because you bring something different, something steady, something grounded, something she doesn't easily find in men her own age. When you erase that difference, you also erase the tension that creates attraction in the first place. Be honest, when an older man suddenly starts acting like he's in his 20s, it rarely feels natural. It feels performed. And women are highly sensitive to emotional authenticity. Even if she never says it, she feels the mismatch. She notices the effort. She senses when something is forced. And instead of pulling her closer, it creates distance. That's why your age is not something to hide. It's something to stand on. It represents experience. It represents resilience. It represents lessons learned through time, failure, growth, and reflection. These are powerful signals in attraction because real, lasting connection is not built on surface-level similarity. It's built on emotional depth and grounded presence. Younger men may bring excitement, yes, but often with inconsistency and lack of direction. You bring something different: clarity, stability, and lived experience. That calm confidence is rare, and rarity is attractive. But the moment you abandon it to fit in, you lose your edge. You lose the very thing that made her notice you in the first place. So don't chase her energy. Don't match her intensity. Don't compete where you were never meant to compete. Instead, hold your frame. Stay grounded. Stay centered. That is where your power is. That is where your magnetism lives. Because in psychology, one of the most overlooked truths is simple. People are drawn to those who are comfortable being themselves. In your own identity. Not perfect, not flashy, not loud, but real. When you are truly at ease with who you are, when you move through life without trying to prove anything, it creates something powerful. A sense of safety and intrigue at the same time. And that combination is rare. That combination is compelling. From a psychological standpoint, it signals strength without aggression, confidence without noise. It quietly says, I know who I am and I don't need to pretend to be anything else. And that is deeply attractive. That is how real connection starts to deepen in a meaningful way. So if you want to understand how to build lasting emotional connection, it always begins here. Authenticity over performance, presence over pressure, depth over display. A younger woman isn't looking for a copy of herself. She's looking for balance. She's looking for someone who brings stability into her emotional world, not someone who mirrors the same emotional highs and lows she already experiences. When you stay aligned with your natural rhythm, when you don't rush, when you don't overextend, you create space. And in that space, she feels free to come closer on her own terms. That's the key. Attraction should feel like a pull, not a push. So stay still when others are restless. Stay grounded when others are chaotic. Stay calm when others are trying too hard. That is not weakness. That is mastery. And in the subtle language of attraction, mastery speaks louder than any words, trends, or temporary effort ever could. Conclusion. All right, we've reached the end. And if you stayed this far, take this with you. Keep it simple. Don't chase. Don't perform. And don't lose yourself trying to win someone's attention. Be the man who stands firm in who he is.